Hey, Dr. Dan here. We are going to build an app today from start to finish using the Ionic framework. This is going to be a mobile app, and it is going to be a real-time database backend using Firebase. And for the front end, we're going to use the Ionic framework, which is built on AngularJS, which in turn is built on Node. So let's get started. So the first thing to do is to go download node.js from their website. Once you have that, you should be able to open a Node command prompt. It's basically just your normal command prompt with Node commands enabled added to your path. So after you've done that, we need to install a few things, and this is the advantage of using Node, is we can use the npm package installer to globally install a lot of dependencies that we'll need to make a mobile app. So I have Node. I'm going to run the command npm install-g so it happens globally, and I need the following things. I need Cordova, which is going to enable us to write code in JavaScript and TypeScript and HTML and CSS and SCSS, all the normal web developer code stuff, but then transpile it down to JavaScript, and then finally into native code for the appropriate parts of our code base. This way we can dual deploy to iOS, Android, and desktop and web if we wish. So we're going to use Cordova for that. Ionic is going to be the front end framework built on Angular. So in order to get Ionic, let's get Angular. In order to get Angular, let's go ahead and get TypeScript. TypeScript is a superset of JavaScript. It's basically like object-oriented programming with JavaScript and HTML written by the people at Microsoft. And that should be all we need. So I'll install those globally. And there we go. Now we are going to cd to my documents folder, and let's do Ionic start, and we're going to call this song lyrics. That's the name of our app. Our app's function is to store song lyrics for a band and have the other band members be able to modify and see those song lyrics being modified live through a real-time database. So Ionic starts, and then the template we're going to use for this is just blank. Alright, so it's going to say, would you like to integrate your app with Cordova? We want to, absolutely. Okay, and now it's asking us install the free Ionic Pro SDK and connect your app. We want to do this, and the reason we want to do this is that with Ionic Pro's SDK, we can bypass the App Store and Google Play for testing purposes and download Ionic View, which I will show you here, onto our phone or tablet. And what this is going to do is allow us to deploy our code using basically like a GitHub account through Ionic View, so a Git repository through them. And once we've deployed that code, we can then, once we've committed that code to their repos, we can then deploy. And when we deploy, if we have on our phone the Ionic View app, which is free, we can then run our app on our phone. And then we can test things like their camera, the email invite, and so on. So we do want to do that. Okay. So we want to create a new app. Let's call this lyric core. What did we call this? We called it song lyrics. Okay. And which Git host? So we're going to go ahead and use their host. I'm not too concerned about this tracking this code base, and they maintain their Ionic Pro repos. Well, all right. So now that we have all that ready, let's cd to song lyrics. All right, we're in here, and now we need to do an npm install Angular Fire 2, I believe. Let's see how we do that exactly. They're fine. And, okay, so we want Firebase Angular Fire 2. We don't need that dash save anymore. So let's go ahead and do that. And so what we're installing here is a Firebase module and an Angular Fire 2 module. That's going to allow us to communicate with our Firebase database. Alright, so let's take a look at this code. So what I'm going to use as an editor is Visual Code. You can download that for free here. And another option is Atom at atom.io. Both of these recognize TypeScript and that makes them advantageous to use for these. So I have Visual Code, so I'm going to type code space dot to open the project. If you had Atom, you could type Atom dot, and it would do the same thing in Atom. So here is our project, and let's just quickly run over what these folders are. In Node modules, we have all the packages we installed. In resources, we have things that are going to be different for iOS and Android. For this project, we don't need to worry about that. We have a source directory where all our code is going to go. And so in here you'll see we have one page, which is home, and then theme, which has our global variables, assets, where we'll store our images and whatnot, and app, which is the bootstrap folder of our entire app. So the first thing I'm going to do is show you how to use the Ionic lab command, Ionic lab, to run multiple simulated devices. Like I said, we can also just deploy this to our phone with Ionic View. So here is what our app currently looks like. We're looking at it at iPhone and Android. We could look at it in just Android. Let me make my browser a little smaller. Okay. And this is pretty cool. This is a Node spinning up a local server on port 8100, and you could go to my computer at this point and see this if you wanted. Alright, so I'll leave that running, and in our app folder, let's go first to our app components.ts. Alright, so I think I'm going to, from here, first turn this into a lazy loading list for our pages. So instead of loading our home page, which we have to import up here, what we're going to do is lazy load it, because we're going to lazy load all the pages. And to do that, instead of having a variable of type any, we are going to first have a template component, and for this template, let's set this to ion nav my nav root, and we'll set this to root page. And this is because we're going to sometimes want to direct the user immediately to log in when their login status changes or the first time they log into the app. Okay. And then we need to import some things up here. Let's see. We've got platform. We also want a nav controller, and we want a nav params, because we're going to be lazy loading pages. That's all from Ionic Angular, and we want component, inject viewChild up here. Status bar is fine, splash screen's fine. Let's see, what else do we need to know? We need to know about our authentication status from the very beginning. So is the user authenticated? And for that we need Angular Fire off, and that's going to be from Angular Fire 2 / off. We also want, let's see, I think that might be it. We also want to import root render nodes, because we don't know about any of the pages at this point, so we have to render them from template. So, and this is going to be from @Angular core source view. Okay, and that's all the imports we need there. When we import things like this, what we're really doing is importing chunks of code, modules that are defined elsewhere, so that we can use them inside this class. Alright, so now when we export the class in our constructor, first of all, we're going to have a decorator, which is going to be viewChild, and the child we're going to view is my nav, which we defined up above, and we want our nav controller there, and then we'll do public root page, and it's going to be of type string because we're lazy loading it, and we'll call this page our login page. We do need to make it a string. Okay. And let's make that a capital. Alright, so in our constructor we're going to need platform status bar splash screen, and also private reference to our Angular Fire off of type Angular Fire off. And I believe that is it. Yeah. Okay, and then so when we get a platform, we get ready. We want to hide the splash screen, and then let's see if their authentication state is logged in. user, and then user, oops, that needs to be here, okay. And then we can say if user, and then let's go ahead and set root page to our home page. So if we're logged in, do that. Else, let's set this root page to our login page. Alright. And then semicolon there. And at the very bottom, before we get out of this class, let's do a ng on init. Oh my goodness. Init ng on init, and let's this nav. So let's change and push to this page. Okay. That's all we need to do there. Now, in app modules, we need to handle a lot of imports for things we're going to need. So we have our browser module, our air handler and ng module, Ionic app, Ionic module. We also are going to want our nav controller, and nav params throughout. So what we do here is we're bootstrapping the entire app, so these are things that we're going to need throughout the app. So we need a splash screen, status bar. Let's see what else. We definitely need our Angular Fire module from Angular Fire 2. We're going to need to import our Angular Fire database module from Angular Fire 2 / database. Angular Fire database module. Okay, let's import our authentication. So Angular Fire auth module, and that's going to be our how we do our authentication from Angular Fire 2 / auth. And finally, we want to import Angular Fire auth from Angular Fire 2 auth. And then let's see, we're also going to need a config file. So let's go ahead and make one of those. So here in app, I'll do a new file, and I want to call this Firebase credentials.ts. And in Firebase credentials.ts, we are going to export a constant config, and then we'll put our API key in here. Once we get it, back here in app module, we're going to need to import that. And let's keep this kind of clean so we have all the Angular Fire stuff together. Import. Firebase config, and that was at Firebase credentials. Okay, so we have, we're going to have a couple services. Let's not worry about that. Let's import our login page here as well. We don't actually have that yet, but it will be located in pages, login, once we make it. Alright, and that is all for now. Alright, so let's make a login page. We'll do that through the command line. So what I will do is hit Control-C twice to get outside of that loop, and then I will do Ionic generate page, login page. We're going to need some other pages as well. So this is going to be a song lyric modifying page. So we have a home page, we're going to need a login page. Let's have a register page. So Ionic generate page, register page. So we'll have band members register their band when they sign up. Let's have an let's just remember that. Okay. We also need, we'll have a invite page where you can invite other band members by email. We'll use the email composer for that. And let's have a Ionic generate. So what do we need to do? We need to be able to view a song, view song page, and we need to be able to edit a song. Alright, and now that should be all the pages we need for this app. And let's have a page where we can add. So view, and then we can edit or add, and we'll have those be very similar types of pages. Alright, so now if we look in our pages, we can now see all these pages in addition to home. And each time we do that, it generates a HTML, which is going to be the things that the viewer sees, and a TS file, which is has a link to the template HTML and where we'll handle the code for dealing with user interaction, and then a module, which is how we'll be able to lazy load that page, and a local SCSS for styling inside of this invite folder, and that's true of every page we just made. Alright, so one last thing we're going to need for the way that I've envisioned this app is we'll need to import something called a email composer. This is a Cordova module. This is going to help us use some native code that's different for iOS and Android to hook into the phone's email composer when we want to do things like invite other band members to the app. And so this is going to be from @Ionic native email composer. Alright, so let's get that set up so we don't get an error, and then we'll get our Firebase credentials. But first, let's handle our declarations. So since we're lazy loading homepage, we don't need that there. For our imports, we're going to need browser module, Ionic module, we'll need Angular Fire module, and we'll call the initialize function with Firebase config here. We also need Angular Fire database module and Angular Fire auth module. And that's it for that. We'll bootstrap the app. Entry components, we just need my app, because again we're lazy loading the home page. For our providers, status bar, splash screen, that's our first so we'll use class Ionic error handler. Let's add to this Angular Fire auth and our email composer. Alright. Cool. So it's throwing an error now. We need to do we need to install the email composer so that works. So to do that, we want to npm. Let's see here. I want to do Ionic Cordova add plugin email composer. And then we'll npm install our email composer. Okay. And that should handle that error. Cool. All right. So now let's set up Firebase. So we want to go to firebase.google.com, set up an account if you don't have one already, and then go to your console. Just set up a free account with email. Once you're at your console, you want to add a project, and we're calling this song lyrics, and let's get rid of one of for now, let's go ahead and use a project that we've already got running, like the shopping list project. And if you create a new project, so once you create a new project, you will see a screen like this, and you'll see you have authentication, database. So a few things to configure right away. For authentication, make sure you click on sign in method and click on email password and enable that, and then save it. In database, you will want to start a database, and you want a real-time database. It'll give you the option between these two. Once you start it, you'll see something like a blank shopping list database. So I'll go ahead and delete the current entries in that database, children, and so now we just have a shopping list database. to work with. And then if we go over to rules, these are authenticated default security rules, and that is fine because we are going to use authentication in our app. Alright, so now we need to go to our project overview and we want to add Firebase to our web app, and what we're interested in is just this information inside of our config file. So I'm going to copy only this part right here. Right. And then over here in Visual Code, in my Firebase credentials, I'm going to paste that information into this constant that I'm using over here in app module to initialize the app with Firebase, with Angular Fire, which is a module that's going to allow us to very easily communicate with our database. Okay, so we're getting an error. It is a template error. So we need this to be template URL. Let's run that again. So Ionic Serve works just like Ionic Lab. It's just a little faster, and it'll open up the template, or the app as a web page. Alright, so now we are getting an error for Angular Fire off. Please add @gmodule annotation, and that is at our, okay. So that's at our app module. Let's check that out. Over here in appmodule.ts, Angular Fire module from Angular Fire 2, Fire off. We have our Angular Fire module. We're initializing it with our Firebase config. Database module, our Angular Fire off module. There we go. That should fix that. Okay, we didn't get any errors that time. That's a good sign. Try it one more time. Hooray! Alright, so we get directed to the login page because we are not logged in. Okay, cool. So, at this point Firebase is attempting to log us in, so let's build a login page. Let's build a login page from our pages. So, over in Pages, click on Login, click on HTML, and we're going to add some Ion items here in the content. So first, let's Ion item. We can have a Ion label. Email, and then we'll have an input field, and we're going to use double binding here, so two-way binding here with our ng model. We get this from Angular, so any update to the HTML or to the TypeScript gets updated in the other file. And that'll be our Ion input. Oops, let's leave it like that. It's cleaner. For the title, we can have a space there. And what else? Alright, so we need an email. Let's go ahead and just copy that and paste that for a password. So email password for the ng model here, it's going to be password. And we'll do this type equals password so that our password gets encrypted as we type it. Alright. And then let's finally have a div. We want this centered. And we'll have a button. We'll make it an Ion button. And on the click of that Ion button, we are going to call a function called register. And we'll pass in the parameters email and password. And we'll call this button register. That's when we want to create a user. We'll have another button, which we will call login. So if you don't have an account, we'll call the login function, which we'll define in our TypeScript class. That's all we need there. Alright, so over in TypeScript, for our login, let's see, we need some imports. So we need the nav params, we need component. Let's also import our Angular Fire authentication. Angular Fire 2 off. And that's it. Okay. Now in our constructor, we have our nav. We also need to get a reference to our Angular Fire off. So let's pass that in as a parameter into our constructor. Off. Let me drop this down. And then we're also going to need well, that's probably all we really need. Alright. So if we load, we can still log. That's fine. We need to define two more functions now. One which is register. That'll take an email and a password, and one which is login, which will also take a email and password. Okay, and register is going to call our Angular Fire off, and we'll create user with email and password, and we'll pass in the email and password. Login. Oh, and you know what? After we create a user, we need to go somewhere else. So we'll do a dot then, and with the result, we can go to so we're just going to continue on, and where are we gonna go? Let's go to this .navcontrol.setRoot. So we'll lazy load our register page so that after they create a user, we'll have them register their band. It's not liking something here. Oh, I don't think I needed that after all. So we want then. Oh, no, that was okay. Oh, I know. We want to set our root to, we want to go to our register page, and we can actually go there with our email. That's fine, that's fine. Does it just need to be, yeah, okay. Same line matters for that, that's fine. Okay, so after that, let's handle login in a similar way. We'll do this .angularfire.auth.auth. And we want to sign in with user email and password. And we'll pass in our email and our password. And then send our user to nav control dot set root to our home page, and again we can pass our email in as a parameter. Okay, let's save that. And so we should now be able to register and log in. So let's test out that functionality. Alright, let's see if we broke anything. Okay, pretty fast transpile. We now have email and password, and we should be linked to this project. So if we go over to authentication, we can see all the users. So let's pick one. z@z.com doesn't appear to be a user yet. So let's test out using that. z@z.com. And we can even pull that out, put it over there. Make this okay, so let's switch to our Firebase, and let's give the password, and then let's register. So we got directed to the register page, and if we refresh this, we'll now see that we have our z@z.com user logged in. So if we go back and we try and log in with z@z.com and the same password, and we log in instead of registering. Okay, may have typed the wrong password there. We get a crash. Reload that. z@z.com. Interesting. We make a new user t@t. think I just forgot the password very quickly. Alright, t@t.com should now be in our database. There it is. Alright, so let's actually just serve it again here. Just to test the functionality out. Whoa. t@t.com. And let's register. Interesting. Oh, we wanted to log in. That's exactly the error we should have seen. t@t.com. And log in. Alright, so we have an invalid link to the home page, but it did try to load it. So let's see what's going on there. This home page. There's our home page. We're sending our email. Oh, you know what? I think in our app module, we're going to have to, let's go to app module. Oh, we're importing it there. Strange error to get here. Alright. Uncaught in promise, invalid link, home page. So register page is working, and yet home page is not. Why would that be? The page that should load. Let's see here. Let's delete all of that and just make a new home page. And let's do Ionic page, because I just want it to be a normal page. Home page. Alright. Save that. And serve again. This out, t@t.com. Login. Cool. All right. So we get our home page loaded. So our home page had some default setting, was what was happening. That was confusing our lazy loading list way of loading pages. So I just got rid of it and made it just like a normal page. So now we have the ability to log into Firebase. So next up we're going to start crafting our homepage to display a list of items in our database and make services to communicate with that database. Thank you for listening for now. See you next time.